Hi, guys. Welcome to Advertising Strategies. And this is your first YouTube video that you have to watch. So today's conversation is going to be on the history of advertising. So let's get started. What I want to do is first start with a conversation on marketing. All right. So, what is marketing, right? That's kind of where I want to start the conversation. Um, Now, you may have taken a marketing class or, you're possibly going to take it at some point. But, when you're studying PR and advertising and promotions, I mean, it's all sort of part of the larger umbrella, which we would call marketing. Okay. So, what I want to do is showcase this particular definition. Kotler, is a big name in marketing. Even when I was studying for my MBA level courses, the first textbook that I was asked to buy was a Kotler book. It was like a big fat book, anthology of like different case studies and things like that. So he's a big name, and I actually do like this particular definition. In my class, I never insist that you learn the definition by rote. You don't need that. You will never need that. I'll never ask you for it. But I think it's important to look at a definition to see what are all the little components that we need to know about. Okay, so when you look at this definition, you're seeing science and you're seeing art, because marketing is both a science and an art. Okay, so what is a science and art of? It's a science and art of exploring, creating, and delivering value. When I say value, I mean something that is important or useful. Okay, so you're creating value to satisfy the needs of a target market. And when you think of a target market, it could be, you talk about Coca-Cola. Well, who drinks Coca-Cola? If you talk about a Hydro Flask brand of bottle, who buys that, right? That is your target market. And you want to do that at a profit, which means you want to make money selling that, right? And so, how do you do that? So you identify unfulfilled needs. So you kind of find out what is missing in the market, and you sort of define and measure and quantify the size of that market. Okay, so really any kind of creativity, in my mind, should be connected to profitability in some way. And marketing basically does that, right? You define, you measure, you figure out who your target market is, you figure out how big it is, and you put a number to it, right? That's what quantification means. So you put a number to the size of this market and how much money you can actually make by selling this particular product. So if a company has several lines of products, or maybe within one line of product has several products. This is, when you do some marketing, when you do some research, market research, you start to figure out which of these brands are going to be most profitable. Okay, so that's what that last sentence means. It pinpoints which segments the company is capable of serving the best, and it sort of designs and promotes through advertising, design and promotes those appropriate products and services. Okay, so that is Philip Kotler's definition. I really like it, and I wanted to sort of share it with you. Okay, so let's sort of move on and talk about this particular topic that we're going to talk about all semester long. So here's my chance to introduce it to you. So what is advertising? Okay, so we all kind of have some idea, right, what advertising is. But let's just look at this particular definition by Mr. Frank Presbury. This man, he's an important name in our industry. He was inducted in the Advertising Hall of Fame. He's written a book, and it's called the history and development of advertising. Okay, so he's a big name as well, when we talk about history, and I like this particular definition. So let's talk about it. Advertising is a printed, written, oral, and illustrated art of selling. Okay, so as we know, it's part of marketing. And so you're seeing the word selling there. Well, that's the whole purpose why we have this industry, is to sell products or ideas or services. Okay, so it can be printed, which is, like newspaper, like magazine, like written, which actually means the copy of the ad itself. Oral is, it could be something that, can be sort of narrated like a radio or TV commercial. And illustrated is something that is, like a graphic, like a visually depicted art. Okay, so it could be one or all of those words that you see there. And the idea is that we help brands sell their products. Okay, and how do you do that? You're trying to create in the minds of your target audience an impression about your product, a favorable, a positive impression about your product. Okay, and when you do that, people tend to like the product and buy it. Okay, so that is kind of what advertising is. What I want to do now is to introduce you to this man, Mr. Steele, John Steele, John without the H, Jon Steele, and he's really kind of my sort of mentor. I've met him. I've talked to him. I read all his books. Um, just an amazing personality. Okay, and this particular book, Truth Lies in Advertising, I mean, it was one of my first books that I read in the advertising world. And he says, this is an older book, by the way. He's a British guy. He was in the US for a long time, moved to Australia. um, and I think he's still in Australia, and he works with WPP and does their internships. And, those internships are just so coveted, because they take you through the whole, like through maybe 4 or 5 different agencies. And it's a 1 year internship. And you would go to different countries perhaps, but I mean, it's hard to get in there. I know I applied and I didn't get in. It's really hard to get in there, but it is a sort of fantastic opportunity for someone who's interested. So you can look it up, like it's called WPP fellowships. Okay, so I think last year they stopped the program for about a year or two, whatever, but I think it's going to be back up again if it isn't already. Good time to apply, by the way. Okay, so let's talk about what John Steele has to say. The best advertising is a partnership. Okay, so it is it's kind of relationship building here. Okay, so the best advertising is a partnership between client, agency creatives, and consumers. All three parties need to be involved throughout, and advertising strategy should incorporate all their perspectives. This point is fundamental to good advertising. Okay, this is actually a really important um, thing to remember, right? So advertising needs to involve consumers on both rational and emotional levels. Okay, and to the point that it needs to affect change in both their thoughts and their behavior, right? Thoughts and behavior. This is extremely important, and it can't be done without this sort of partnership, is what John Steele is saying here. So, of course, the balance, right, between client, agency, creatives, and consumers at different stages of the process is sort of varies, right? So, let's say when you're first starting off, business objectives that need to be set are clearly set by advertising clients, right? But as you start to do research on your brand, then that sort of focus shifts to the account planning folks who are in charge of that research. And then when you actually have to create all of those ads, when they're being developed, the focus now then moves to the agency creatives. Okay. So, I mean, it's kind of like an oversimplification, like the way I'm explaining this, but at some point, uh, the client, the creators, and the consumers, and their planning reps, everyone sort of temporarily sort of takes a back seat, right? They sit on the bench and they watch someone else do the work, right? So that's kind of, people sort of take turns as they sort of build and grow this partnership. Okay, so that is something I wanted to share with you, and of course we're going to go a lot deeper into this conversation as the semester progresses. Okay, so let's talk about one more thing, and that is called copywriting. Now, I know when you think of copywriting, you're thinking, copyright, like, you have a license over your own work that you create, right? Artistic, literary, right license. Sort of connected with trademark kind of thing where you sort of, register your logo, right? But hey, this is an advertising class, not a law class. And so copywriting really has nothing to do with it at all. So let me tell you what copywriting sort of means in advertising. Okay. Now, copywriting is a craft of writing persuasive messages. So the actual copy that you see in an ad, the process of writing that copy that you see in the ad itself, like the text, the message, that is what we call copywriting in advertising. Okay, so it is a craft of writing persuasive messages that prompt people to take action, right? So when we talk about taking action, you're talking about either, hey, you know what, you saw this copy, you saw this ad, the copy was really persuasive, so you went out and bought the product, all right? Or you thought it was really interesting and you wanted to know more, so you called or you sent an email about it. Or you saw some really great ad about a book and you're like, well, you know what, I'm going to download a trial, or like a sample or whatever, right? Or it could be donating to a cause or whatever it is, right? So it's the work that you do as a copywriter is actually write persuasive copy that persuades people to buy that particular product. So it's very different from our regular writing because it's kind of not geared toward, our regular writing is not geared toward making people buy something, but copywriting is. Van Foster is the one who has written this particular quotation, and AWAI is actually, it's like a copywriters association. And so if you're interested in that stuff, you can look them up, awai.com. Okay, so we've talked so far about some definitions. And so let's kind of get into a couple other things, right? So we will do a deeper dive in this particular next slide you see here on the largest global advertising companies. We'll probably do an activity on it so you get more familiar with what's out there. And some of you probably already are familiar with it. But the term I want to introduce here is a term that you don't see on the slide, and it is called a holding company. A holding company is basically, a company that has a lot of different companies within it. And why is it created? It's sort of created to build, it is created to buy and sort of possess the shares of all these other companies, which it actually then controls. Okay. So it's basically just you could think of it like, an umbrella with lots of different sort of spokes on them, which is all these different companies. Okay, so WPP is one of the largest ones, and then there are others that you see here: Omnicom Group, Publicis Group, Interpublic, and Dentsu. Now, I would say if you have the opportunity and some time, go look up these companies and learn about them, because when you're looking for a job, it would really help to know what the holding company is, where they're based, what their mission is, what their philosophy is, what kind of companies do they have within them. And you can find a bunch of them wherever you go, in whichever part of the world you're in. And so it's good to be informed. Okay, so just the way, there are all of these big companies, within them are the tiny little companies, right? So just the way you have holding companies, you also have several different advertising associations that are out here. Okay, so the one that you should absolutely get familiar with is the Advertising Agencies Association of America, or the 4As, as we call them. I still get like emails from them. When I was in New York, I attended a bunch of their events, and then of course, there's the Association of National Advertisers, which if you're in the field, if you're in a specific field, you would want to join that particular organization. There is the IAB, which is very popular. So if you want to look them up, look them up. AMA, American Marketing Association, I get their emails all the time. They do the speaker series, they do little workshops. It's a great way to network. Okay, so that's AMA. And a lot of these associations actually have, like branches, chapters in your city, right? So something to kind of look up. Yeah, so you definitely find something in Los Angeles. Okay, so American Advertising Federation, AAF. They do a lot of media stuff, and I've attended a bunch of their events. In fact, I've organized one of their events in my company. Nice little speaker series, brings in 3-4 people, lots of, it's a little breakfast event, and everyone hangs out and talks after. It's nice. It's really nice, talking about what's going on in the industry. So that's AAF. That's also something that people join. It is somebody in your company, or your company itself would have like a membership to it. International Advertising Association is another one. Network Advertising Initiative, another one. Data marketing and analytics is definitely more, I would say, focused on like numbers, big data, things like that. So if you're a numbers person, explore that option. So yeah, so there are different sort of advertising agency associations out there. And if you're part of, if you do an internship or something, a good way to say, hey, can you take me along for one of your meetings? I just want to know what it's like. And honestly, you would love that, and it's great exposure. So okay, so that's that for this particular session, and we'll talk more about famous people in in the next video.